Hello BookTube, my name is Alyssa and this is Reading Reflections. Today I'm going to do the 2015 Best Picture tag, which I am super late on doing. I'm so late, I'm so sorry. I got tagged in this video and I got super excited about being tagged and then I didn't have time to make it, and this is kind of a hard tag. I had to think about some of these questions. So thank you Caitlin from Book Chats for tagging me. This tag was created by Caitlin from Book Chats and Rebecca from Why Mermaids, and I'm super excited to do it. I'm sorry it took so long. That's my fault. So first up is American Sniper, and the question that goes with that is, what is your favorite memoir? I own American Sniper and I need to read it. I don't know why I haven't. My mom actually stole it. It's on her bookcase, but I'm going to steal it back and read it. I've heard really good things about it. Mom said she really enjoyed it. I love memoirs, I really do, but I realize I don't own that many. I think I borrow a lot of them because my mom only reads nonfiction and my aunt reads a lot of nonfiction, so I guess that's where they're all at. The memoir that I chose for this category was Farewell to Manzanar by Janine Wakitsu Houston, if I'm saying that right, and James Houston. This is a true story about a Japanese family that was put into a concentration camp after Pearl Harbor, and it's a really quick, short read. I had to read this for school, and then I bought it because I love it. And I've reread this a few times, but it's been a really long time, and I could definitely do it again. I think it's a really interesting read, and not a lot of people know that this happened in history, and I feel like you should, but it's really interesting, and I really like it. I did want to mention, because I feel like a lot of you are in high school now, and I feel like I should plug in here with no purpose, really, just to tell you how much I enjoyed it. Another memoir that I really liked was George Bush Decision Points, and the reason I liked this book was because this is the first president that I remember remember getting elected. I remember him, well, I kind of remember him getting elected. I was in high school. I graduated in 2009, which was when Obama was elected, so he was president when I was in high school, and it's just really interesting to finally read about politics when they actually happen and you remember them happening in your life. And especially with 9/11, you know, I remember 9/11. I know exactly what I was doing when 9/11 happened. I watched the towers fall, and reading it from his perspective was really interesting. And he spends quite a bit of time in this book talking about the timeline of 9/11, what happened, and how he dealt with it, and, you know, what he thought when he was in the school, and the Secret Service guy whispered in his ear. So I'm not saying read this book unless you're my age, but maybe read some political memoirs that, I don't know, if you're in high school or college now, you might remember things happening better, and then it's interesting to read about them from somebody's perspective that was there. I really want to read his 41 book, Portrait of My Father. Although I don't really remember him. He's really the only president that I remember, you know, besides Obama, because I don't remember his dad. I don't remember Bill Clinton. You know, I was young. So this one, it was really interesting and very well written. Whoever, if it's him or a ghostwriter, whoever, did a very good job on these books. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read this, but this is just a little plug to encourage you to read books from different perspectives of a time period that you remember, is basically what I'm saying. Next up we have Birdman, and we're supposed to choose a book with an unreliable narrator. This was really hard for me. I spent more time trying to decide what this book was going to be than I did on all the other books put together. I really don't know if this is the best option. I probably should have done some more research into it, but this is what I came up with, and that is The Lake of Dead Languages by Carol Goodman. It's about a girl who, when she was in, I don't know if it's college or high school, boarding school, but one of those, and it's a house for girls, so it's probably a high school, and somebody dies in the lake by the school, and there's kind of a mystery surrounding why she died, but this girl knows what happened, and you kind of spend the whole book figuring out the mystery, because she has to go back for a reunion, or I don't remember why she has to go back. It's been a long time since I've read this. I just remember not trusting the narrator and thinking that maybe she did it, or she knew about it, or she arranged it. I don't know. I really struggled with this book. I need to go watch more of these videos to see what other people put up for this category, because I don't know. I remember liking this book. I don't remember loving it. It's just all I could come up with at the moment. Next up is Boyhood. Pick a book that reflects your childhood. I don't have a copy here. I think it's in storage, but I would say Little House on the Prairie by Laura Ingalls Wilder. That whole series, my dad read me that series every night for like a year. We got through the whole thing. He doesn't read, so it was really special that he read that to me, and I still remember him reading it, and I love those books. I read them over and over again, and I think I own them. They're just not on this bookshelf. Okay, Grand Budapest Hotel. Pick your favorite quirky character, and I'm going to pick Claire from the Outlander series. I think she's a really interesting character, but she is really quirky. She is a woman ahead of her time before she jumps time. So it starts out in 1945. Starts out in 1945, and she's already a woman ahead of her time. She's very independent. She's been a nurse. She's been through the war. She does not struggle with confidence issues, okay? Then she falls back into time to 1743. Again, now she's extremely ahead of her time. She is very independent. She has no problem telling those men what is what, and she has no problem, you know, fixing them, because she's a nurse and she just does things to them. They don't understand what she's doing. They think she's maybe a witch. She's not afraid to walk around with polio or diseased people because she's got shots, immunizations. And she really doesn't care that they're like men and manly men and curse and do whatever. She does too. I think that's a really interesting philosophy for Claire. I wonder what Claire would be like if she came to today's world. That's what I want to know. What would happen if Claire showed up in 2015? I think she would just be just as quirky and cool, and I love her, and I want to be her, really. The Imitation Game. Choose a book with LGBT characters. For this book, I chose Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx. I love Annie Proulx. I love her writing. I don't think this is generally an author that I would love, but she's from Wyoming, and my family's from Wyoming, and a lot of her stories are based out of Wyoming, and I love them. I love the grit in her stories. Now, if you've watched the movie, or if you've heard things about the movie, I really don't think the book is very much like the movie. I think it's explained differently. I would definitely, it's a short story. This whole book is full of short stories. There are 11 short stories in this book, which is called Close Range, and Brokeback Mountain's the last one in this book, and I really enjoyed it. And you might too. Selma. Choose a book that is written by an African American or is about African American characters. For this book, I chose Someone Knows My Name by Lawrence Hill. I read this book a really long time ago. I was going to pick The Color Purple because I love The Color Purple, but everybody knows that book, and this one is equally just as good. It's pretty big. I am surprised that I got through this book as how young as I was when I read it, which was, I might have been like a 8th grader or a freshman, somewhere in there. And it's about an African American girl who's stolen away from her tribe and marched across Africa to get on a ship to come to America and be a slave, and then they go through the Civil War, and then she does some service to the government and they let her go, and she gets to go back to Africa, and then she's trying to find her people again. It's basically following one character over the span of like 60 years. Which I think is really interesting, and it really tells a complete story of her. But it's a chunker, but it's a really fast read, or at least I remember it being a really fast read. And I didn't know the author was African American, but looks like he is. So, really good. Enjoyed it a lot. Next up, we have The Story of Everything, and we're supposed to choose a book with an unconventional love story. For this, I'm going to choose Tamara by Noel Barber. Now, I just realized that this was his debut novel, and I need to go and see what else he's written, because I love this book so much. This is such a good book. I read this book forever ago, and I gave it to my aunt and all my family members, not my mother, because for some reason she doesn't read fiction. I don't understand, but everybody loved it, and it was like people that were young, people that were old. It's a fabulous book. It's set in the 1930s, or it begins in the 1930s in Singapore, and it's basically a forbidden love story between two families. They're both well-to-do families, or maybe she's only well-to-do. I think maybe, I don't know, for some reason they can't get married. Their families are enemies or hate each other. This is a very typical story for Singapore in the 1930s. I love the setting. I love the characters. I love the romance in it. And it's a huge book. It kind of follows them for a long time, but it's a really fast read. I recommend you go pick it up. Love this book. Just really adore it. And I need to reread it. This needs to go on my reread list. Next we have Whiplash. What is a book that took you a few times to get through but you loved in the end? For me, that is The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I think I tried to read this book too young multiple times, and I own this bind-up version, which is huge. So when you're young, like, you know, elementary school, middle school, getting through this book is like, and the pages are not like small, they're like huge, lots of words, and so I think it was really intimidating at the time, but it took me a little bit to get through, and then I read The Hobbit multiple times and loved it, so I finally just kind of sucked it up and read it, and I love it, and I still love it. In fact, my brother is gonna try to read these now, which gets me really excited because he doesn't read, so yeah, I love this bind-up, by the way. I don't find it anywhere. I probably have owned it for 10 plus years, more than that maybe, because it does this thing where it doesn't break the spine, which is so important for a book this big. So I really enjoy this edition, and it has a lot of indexes and resources in the back, like, that's really helpful and helped me a lot during this process. Oh, and maps. Love me my maps in fantasy especially. So that is it for my best picture tag, even though it's really late. So sorry. I'm gonna do better with getting tags done on time. I promise. Kind of. I mostly promise. I'm gonna try to promise. You know. Thank you for watching. Come back soon.